approaching 1:30, and for those able, I'd like everyone to stand and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Good afternoon. I'm Rudy Grum, Chairman of the Golf Committee, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 1:30. It is Thursday, February 6th. We have a quorum present, and I will now read the newly abbreviated meeting procedures. The governing board and its committees conduct all their meetings in compliance with the Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS Section 33-1804 and in concert with the Rec Center's Sun City West bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with bylaw 3.07 and standing rules number 2 and 3. On to business. We have minutes from the January 9th meeting, which was our last meeting. I did send a copy to everyone. Do I have any changes or corrections that need to be made? Seeing none, I will have them placed on file as presented. Our next order of business is golf operations. Our golf operations manager, Mr. Pat O'Hara.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I've got a few slides for the last 30 days of activity in golf ops. Maybe. All right, there we go. Last 30 days or so, we've had a couple events that we've upcoming ones that are just around the corner. In fact, the next one is our New Orleans Scramble. This is this Saturday over at Trail Ridge. We have 124 players signed up for that. We have about 4 flights, so we're expecting a good event with the good weather. And then the next one after that is the men's match play. Big changes that we've had over the last 6 months or so with our events is we've moved everything online, including registration, and it's helped Brian out quite a bit to organize the events. This last month we had our Golf Expo at Stardust. This is the second annual Golf Expo. We had a little over 325 people attend. It was really good until the weather hit, and we had some cool weather and some wind. One of the things I wanted to mention is we brought over some merchandise from Grandview, some of our off-price merchandise, and we were able to sell over $900 worth of shirts, golf balls, and ladies' apparel. That's one of the food trucks that we had over there, and then I'll get it one of these days. This is a picture of the crowd that was over at Stardust. Live music, it was a good time. Next event we had was couples therapy over at Echo Mesa. This was one of our couples events. This one was sold out. Being at an executive golf course, we don't have the typical 120 or so players. We have to cut it back. This one had 92 players. And you might recognize a few of your neighbors or friends playing in this, but it was, again, a good little event. Also wanted to mention this last, I guess it's been last week or so at Stardust, we had our Green Team Scramble. We do 2 of these events a year, looking at doing 3. We had 80 Green Team members participate in this scramble, so 80 beginner golfers. Had food and prizes. This is a couple pictures of the winners as well as the best dressed for the Super Bowl. The theme was an all sports event. Wanted to give you an update on our call center. Last meeting, we reported that the calls were down a little bit in call center to the tune of 17% after looking through January's number. It's the calls have increased. It's 15% up, but I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the frost delays and the cart restrictions, but they're picking up in calls. But again, it's really good to see that our residents are being able to serve themselves on our portal and book their own tea times and make modifications. So the hours of operation are the same, but we're staffing our call center a little bit differently to reflect the decrease in calls. Just another shout out or a reminder, Todd and his crew do a wonderful job keeping our courses in great shape. Anything we can do to help them. One of the best things we can do is keep our carts on the path as best we can and then go over at a 90-degree angle and cut over and hit your shot and return. That really helps keep the fairways in great condition, and I really want to stress the 30 feet around the tee boxes and the greens. None of us like to chip off of a bare lie, so this will go a long way in doing that. And that is my report.
Thank you, Pat. Anyone on the committee have any questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? Any questions for Pat? Looks like nothing online. Nothing online. Okay, Pat, thank you. Next item of business, 3.02. Mr. Todd Patty, our Environmental Services, will give us a little update on our courses.
Yes, good morning, or good afternoon. Yeah, just a couple things. I want to give you just a recap of the season frost delays and restrictions that Pat was just talking about. And then I've put together a list of summer projects for all 7 golf courses. So we'll get so our frost delays, the month of December of 24, we had three days of cart path restrictions, which wasn't too bad. But I'd like to point out that that screenshot to the right there, that comes from Weather Underground. And I tell you what, this year was so difficult in calling frost delays, whether it was actual delay, a restriction. You know, we thought we were going to have a restriction, then it turned into a delay. But if you can see that blue line that I put through there, you can see in some cases, I'll use Grandview, you can see where it's 36 degrees on the back 9 at Grandview, and then you can see it jumps up to 40, actually 51 degrees difference just going across the street. That's why it was so difficult this year to make those calls. It was just borderline. You know, we would prefer to either just straight out have a real simple of a frost delay or a restriction, but it kept bouncing back and forth, and so it was tricky this year, that's for sure. And then just season totals, December 24, again, we had the 3 cart path restrictions, and then 23 we had 8, so a little better there. January of 24, 5 cart path restrictions, 9 frost delays, and then January 25, 8 cart path restrictions and 10 frost delays. So I'd like to think that we're out of the frost delays, but I was looking at the weather before I came over. Looks like Wednesday could be kind of borderline. I'm not sure, but after that, you know, each day that goes by, we're closer and closer to getting out of the frost delays. So won't be long, and we'll be completely clear. And then our summer closure, our projects, started with our summer closures. Echo Mesa, you know, is closed April 7th, Monday, and that's for the big project, the irrigation turf reduction. But we do have a few things that we'd like to, even though that's outsourced, we'd like to do a few things in-house. And we'd like to level some tees on 8, 12, and 16. We are going to increase our aerification across the entire golf course, especially the rough areas, and then work on some bunkers and add some sand as needed. And in Trail Ridge, we're closing on Monday, June 2nd. Jonathan he had a pretty lengthy list. I kind of tightened it up a little bit, but install drainage on fairways, add new granite to some of the desert areas throughout the golf course as needed, repair bunker edges on 7, 8, and 12, and then adding sand to some of the fairway bunkers on 8, 15, 17. And the big one is raising and leveling irrigation heads, especially around the greens. They've really sunk down, 3, 4 inches. So we need to bring those up and level those heads. That's really going to increase the efficiency of the irrigation system by doing that. So both courses are scheduled to reopen on Tuesday, October 21st, and that's after the overseeding. So they'll be the first courses to overseed next year. And then at Pebblebrook, bunker edge repair, tree removal and replacement. Again, we're gonna do some irrigation work over there as far as raising and leveling some heads. Weed control is gonna be a big one over there in the rough areas, and then drainage along the cart paths. Stardust, again, irrigation work. We're gonna change out the older heads and use some of the units from Echo Mesa. We can recycle those. So some of those heads that we're gonna pull off of Echo Mesa during the project, we can take those over and use it at Stardust. So that's gonna save a little bit of money in the irrigation account. POA and nuts edge control, that's a big one for Stardust. We do have a little bit of a infestation of POA on those greens over at Stardust, so I'm hoping we can get that under control this year. And then some tree work, removal and replacement. Grandview, top dress, low areas and fairways and rough, that's a result of, some of those depression areas are a result of the irrigation project that we did in 2023, where they settled just a little bit. It wasn't too bad, but I'd like to address those. We can just put some sand on those and that will fill in, or that Bermuda will grow in. Continue our tree replacement program. We've got some more trees scheduled to go in next week, but this summer we can actually finish that up. Drainage along cart paths. We're going to work on those transition areas over at Grandview from the desert edge to the turf. A lot of those will sod. Some of those I think we can actually extend out the desert landscape, and it's not going to have any effect on the golf course playability. So it might be easier in some areas just to extend the desert areas out. And then he does want to level some tees over there on 4, 8, and 11. Deer Valley installed dry wells along cart path on 7. Again, we're going to increase the aerification over there throughout the entire golf course. Drainage on fairway bunkers, or over between the fairway bunkers on number 18. We've got a little irrigation challenge over there with the spacing and everything, so it does tend to get a little bit wet over there. Then you have the trees in the shade, and then the compaction from the cart traffic over there. So I think we can put some dry wells in there, and that's going to help alleviate some of the wet spots. Reshape and clean bunker edges, and tree removal and replacement as well over at Deer Valley. Desert trails, we're going to go after the drip irrigation in desert areas. Replace desert plant material. We've lost a little bit from last summer, so we'd like to get in there and replant some of those areas. Install split rail fence over on road crossing 3 to 4. That's going to be similar to what we did at Echo Mesa on all those road crossings, like 7 to 8 and 2 to 3. And tree trimming, again, replacement and removal, and then install drainage along cart paths over desert trails. And I believe that was it. Yeah, that was it for the summer projects that we had. And what I'd like to do, as we get closer to these projects, I'll update them, and as actually we get into the projects, I'll have some pictures and stuff and show you the progress that we're making on those projects on the golf course. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hurley.
Todd,
Yes, sir.
if I remember correctly, you put in some of the new grass. Was it Tiff Tuff on number 9 at YT at Grandview?
Yes.
Did we oversee that area this year?
Yeah, we did. That was on the team. We did oversee that too.
Okay.
So.
What about some of the areas around the trees and things like that? How's that coming?
It looks pretty good. We did some over at Stardust, and we did some over at Grandview. We have that turf over at the large dog park. We did several areas over there too. It's holding up very well. And we didn't oversee that at the dog park this year. So we'll see how it transitions, especially that tee on number 9. But so far so good. Those areas around the trees and the shaded areas at Grandview and Stardust, they look pretty good. So.
Good. Yeah. I have a question on frost delays, and this may be better for Pat than for Todd, but Pat, do we know when we have a 2-hour frost delay how many cancellations we have?
No, I don't have that quantified. We can go back and look at that, but I don't have anything outlined.
Really what I was getting to is the revenue that we lost because of that. Do we have any idea how much revenue we lost because of the delays?
No, and as far as people dropping out because of an hour or 2 hour, no, but we can look into that for sure.
I think that'd be interesting information for us to see. Thank you.
Yeah, I think meeting, I kind of asked the same question almost, Tim. And, you know, look into it. I guess really having some data, I don't know how your check-in people would manage that. You probably don't have software that can keep track of, do you have software that can keep track of cancellations?
No, we, the way we earmark it on the T sheet, if, versus a no-show versus a cancellation, there's ways that we can identify that.
So a no-show and a cancellation would probably fall into that same category on a frost delay, because I'd be curious to see that too, because I think last time I mentioned, you know, we're interrupting 280 people on the T sheet for, you know, all day long, trying to figure out when will I really get to play, or now it's too late because I either can't get it in, or I've got other plans. Yeah. So I support your question, Tim.
Absolutely.
Anyone in the audience? Yes, sir. Name and rec card number, please.
Tom Wolgemuth, 112417. On the issue of frost delays, I would like to recommend to the golf committee that a rather in-depth study be done sometime in the spring or before next fall. Nothing we can change this late into the winter. To review whether we're doing the right thing, the wrong thing for everybody on it. Part of the questions that Tim asked. There's a lot of different suggestions, and I think the golf committee needs to actually make a policy. And if you start another committee like that, I will volunteer to be on it.
Yeah, Jim Scott, 404675. Doing a great job there, Todd. Team's doing a fantastic job. Just out of curiosity, on average, when we do have a frost delay, how long of a ripple does that have in regards to an average day's schedule to where you guys are back on track? I mean, this doesn't go through the entire day, does it? Or are you guys able to? It does ripple all the way through.
It can.
I know it can. On average, how long does it?
It really depends. To be able to answer that over all 7 golf courses,
This year?
it fluctuates from day to day and course to course. We've been as far behind as 2 hours at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We've been on time. So you're right, there is a ripple effect, and we can look and see what those average to be. Absolutely.
It'd be interesting to know how big of an issue this really is. I mean, obviously the colder weather is going to impact it. We've been very blessed so far. I don't know if it's good or bad to be blessed with the weather this year, but yeah, it'd be interesting. Thank you.
Anyone else? Nothing online? Okay. Thank you, Todd.
All right, thank you.
And now we get to hear about our finances and how many people have played golf in the last 6 months.
All right. Yeah, the fun stuff. Thank you, Director Grum. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go over the financial results for the first half of the year. Looking at the revenue for the year to date, we are 150,000 unfavorable to budget on $4.5 million in revenue. Obviously, the bulk of that's going to be in golf fees, and we'll talk about the rounds here coming up. So the rounds for the year compared to budget were approximately 3,300 rounds off of budget through the first 6 months. You can see that the member rounds are down the most significant portion, or the whole portion, made up a little bit by non-member rounds. So looking at the compared to prior year, we're 147,000 ahead of prior year. Obviously, there were golf greens fee increases put in the budget, but we're 4,000 rounds approximately off of prior year, all that being from member rounds as well. So when we dig into the revenue, if we look at the card revenue, there are a lot more unlimited card holders compared to prior year, and the revenue there is 29,000 higher than prior year compared to prior year. And the Twilight card was a popular card, and that's 15,000 head. Everything else is pretty flat, and the other Kachina and Coyote. Looking at the greens fees tied to the rounds, obviously we will be down in resident green fees, but our non-member greens fees are up, but overall 4% increase over prior year. Again, due to the increases put in the rates year over year. So what we've done year to date and what we can expect for the rest of the year, you can see here we're just kind of tracking right in between the red and the blue, which is prior year and budget. You know, we're in terms of revenue, that's where we're at, and you can see we're going to peak here in March coming up. February's starting to shape now. I will say we came in flat to budget in prior year in January, as we're closing January now. So it's just something to look forward to on the greens fees and rounds. Here's a picture of our rounds, what we've done year to date, and what we can anticipate over the next 6 months. Switching over to the expenses, we're 484,000 favorable to budget. We're continuing to have our efficiencies in landscape and repair and maintenance, especially the repair and maintenance area. But we'll keep an eye on those. Some of those things are related to timing and things that just happen throughout the year on the courses. But the salaries, wages, and benefits, that savings is strictly from open seats in the landscape maintenance area. Compared to prior year, 95,000 unfavorable to prior year on the expense structure. Pretty good shape, holding the line on non-payroll related expenses, and that looks pretty good for the year. We anticipate continuing that trend. So looking at the wages and benefits, this is what we can anticipate for the rest of the year. We're kind of tracking in between the prior year and budget. And then overall expenses, just to show you what those will do throughout the rest of the year. Year to date, under budget for the most part. So overall, 334,000 favorable to our budget and 52,000 favorable to prior year. Again, I'll point out, we do operate at a negative cash flow for the first 6 months of the year, the first half of the year. And that's a normal thing, and that's because of all the investments we make in the courses. I'm saying that for the benefit of the community, as well as obviously everybody in this room, but it's important to understand that the investments we make in overseeding and the things that we do with the courses and all the maintenance are to prepare them for our busy season. So that concludes my financial presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any committee question? Mr. Hurley.
Right. I think it would be very, excuse me, I think it'd be very interesting to put this trending all other expenses chart on top of the revenue chart, because it really tells the story. Our budget year starts in July. Mm-hmm. As soon as July hits, there's a bunch of POs that are cut for work to be done in the upcoming year during the time when our revenue is at its lowest.
That's correct.
So they're out of sync as far as revenue versus expenses, and I think that causes some confusion among some of our members.
I agree.
So if we could, I mean, and that's the pure and simple story.
Yeah, that's exactly true. If you think about it, we're really essentially getting ready for our high season in the first half of the year, and our high season lasts essentially from November through April. So yeah, if you laid those two charts on top of each other, they would be inverse. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think that'd be a great visual.
Okay, I can present that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Does the downward trend in rounds, does that based on each course? I mean, is there some courses that are up and others that are down?
No, it's, I would say it's, on average, it's indicative of all the courses. Yeah, so it's not as necessarily tied to a specific course. We do have those by course listed in our CFO golf report, which we publish on the financial link. And you can see that. I will say that you have to take into account course closures year over year, different times. So you can't just look at it and tell. You have to have some additional information there, which I think they put those course closures on that CFO golf report.
I didn't know if there was, during the prime season, if there were certain courses that are underperforming and some that are overperforming, so.
There are certain courses that perform better than others because just people like certain courses better. I mean, that's just reality. Yeah, we have more popular courses than others, absolutely. And then we also have courses that have more outside play than other courses. So there's a lot of different factors. The outside play generates more revenue. So if you looked at it from a revenue perspective, that doesn't necessarily give you the true picture either. So there's a lot of different dynamics when you look at those charts and courses. We could spend a whole week's worth of committee meetings on discussing trends and things like that at different courses for sure. Yeah, you're welcome.
No other questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? Nothing online. Okay, thank you, Cliff. Next topic is one that's been under business for a couple of months now, our working group. Policy 06 is the last policy that we have not completed looking at this year, and we formed a working group a couple months ago. They've met and looked at a fair amount of data. They're going to be meeting tomorrow. And Mr. Hurley, anything else much to add to that?
Hopefully we'll have something to bring before the committee after the meeting tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. 4.02. We'll take a look at our projects for FY25 and 26.
Yeah, no changes as far as the, this is on the equipment, but there's no changes on the projects or the equipment that we've listed. The only change would be we did add a little bit of detail. Oh, come on. There we go. That's landscape. Well, this isn't golf, but it's landscape. I'll go ahead and give this. Well, that's. Come on. All right, there's our equipment replacement for golf maintenance. Again, nothing has changed on this, but I did add some detail as far as the deferred and the eliminated. So as you can see that we deferred one unit, which was a Procore greens aerifier. We moved that into another year, and then we completely eliminated a fairway aerifier from the reserve study this year for $34,943. And then as far as the utility vehicle replacement, we've eliminated one unit from the reserve study, and that was a dump truck that we had on there. We felt that we just didn't have a use for that anymore. We do have a couple dump trucks, and so that's more than enough. So with outsourcing a little bit, they have that equipment, so we no longer need to carry that on the reserve study. And that was for $74,648. And then since I showed this to you, it has the totals, but this is landscape maintenance. Again, we had 4 units deferred. That was a bank mower tractor, utility trailer, and a greens roller for 140, totals here, for $140,219. And then we eliminated from the reserve study a bank mower, and that's in the rec center side, that's landscape maintenance. So our totals of deferred was $182,184. And then we eliminated $163,647 for a grand total of $345,831 during that. And again, you've heard me talk about the process that we go through each year during the budget. When it comes to replacing our equipment and our utility carts, we analyze those. We look at the reserve study and see if in fact we really do need to replace those units. And we find a lot of times that we don't need to, and then we can push them out into another year. But that's just part of our annual process when it comes to replacement of our equipment and our utility cards.
Anyone have any questions for Todd? Anyone?
Actually, I do have a question. I don't know who it's for, to be honest. I think the last meeting you said golf carts were about they average about 7 years before you turn them over. Is that about right?
No, it's a little over 10.
Over 10?
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think out. So we're buying today's golf cart. Are we really thinking about 10 years from now and so we don't miss our opportunities to add anything or change things in golf carts in general?
So when we purchase carts, we look at a couple different things. Improvements in technology, what availability we have for storage, things of that nature. We've landed on gas carts over the last 15, 20 years due to the fact that we have small fleets and we got to turn those over multiple times a day. Lithium has come a long way as far as a power source, but there's some challenges with that, and they're more expensive. There's quite a few negative components to that. So we look at it frequently, but we're limited in storage. We're limited into electrical opportunities. Our cart barns aren't wired for electricity.
Right. So we're dry. I understand the gas and the battery,
Sure.
particularly right now, today.
Right.
But so you're limited in potentially making any changes because of cart storage.
Yeah, the
And
changes.
So are we thinking out far enough in that so that you don't get 7 years out and all of a sudden, oh, now we need a $200,000 addition where we could be doing some incremental things?
Sure, and that discussion has happened in the last couple years. We had a presentation based upon making a change, and it didn't make sense at the time because of the cash outlay that we would have to modify our storage, increases in the cart fleet expense. So we're looking at it, but the way we buy our carts are in lots of 20 to 30. So we would roll it out I would imagine we would roll it out that way as well, whatever changes we make. Rather than buying 155 carts at one time, we roll it out.
Right, I get that.
Yeah. So we would if we did make some changes, we would roll it out in a 20 or 30 cart lot. At least that's the way I see it.
Right, so basically, you're fine with your storage, you have no issues, you don't want any expansion, nothing, because nothing's coming up in terms of.
Oh yeah, those are
trying to think out here a little bit.
those are conversations we have internally. We weigh the cost factor of expanding to what the benefit is. We've slowly added to our fleet over the last 5 or 6 years. We've added 15 carts.
Right.
But we're getting to a point where that's about where we're gonna have to land on. So we can't, at this present time, we don't have the ability to bring in 40 extra carts or 50 extra carts.
So, Pat, I believe we were analyzing the cart rentals, and there were 50,000 cart rentals last year. 5,000 of those came from our members, 45,000 came from non-members. So
they're going to
pay so our carts are for our non-members essentially. And if we need to grow that, that would mean based on our current demographics, and I don't know how those demographics are going to change down the road, but for the last, I would say 40 years, people have come here with their own golf cart. So if we're going to change something there, that would be a shift in trying to grow non-member golf at this point. But we are at capacity with our current cart barns.
Or you could just package your rates with the cart increase to the public in there. The public is what you want to pay for it, I get that.
Well, yes, but the point is we have enough carts to service the non-member golf is what I'm saying. So if we're gonna grow non-member golf, we need to grow our fleet. And then that would take infrastructure requirements and things like that.
So status quo.
Do we have times where we actually run out of carts for renting?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what happens to those players? Do they not play or do they walk?
Typically, we lose some rounds of golf over that. So our policy is that we supply carts based upon tee time. One time people were coming in at early in the morning to reserve a cart for a 1 o'clock tee time, and we just couldn't handle it that way. So it's based upon when you tee off, and March, late February are the 2 months that we really see this, and it's to the tune of, we might lose 10 to 20 rounds of golf at 5 of our golf courses on a daily basis because of that.
And would those be mostly members or guests?
It's usually a guest of a member. You know, you might have a foursome where they can supply one cart, but the other 2 guests need a cart. Or it would be the Twilight and Super Twilight with our public play.
This would probably be mostly then during prime season.
Oh, very much so.
Never in the summer. Mostly.
Not really.
Anyone else on the committee? Mr. Scott?
Jim Scott, 404675. Good topic. This is something I was kind of interested in. How many carts do we have in the fleet?
We have on the 7 golf courses 155.
And then on average, what's the cost of a cart?
To purchase one?
Yeah,
This year, we're looking at spending close to $7,000 per cart.
okay. Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to calculate. So have you kind of figured out what our ROI is in years?
Right.
So we're gonna say we're buying, 22 carts this year?
We're looking to try and buy 30.
30. So if we're buying 30 this year at 7,000 each, the rounds of golf theoretically will have paid those carts off in 2-3 years?
3 years.
3 years? Okay, that's what I'm looking for. All right, thank you very much, Pat.
You bet. Average cart is kept for close to 10 years, 7 to 10 years. So that's the life expectancy of one of our carts.
So we're making a nickel out of it 3
Yeah.
years after?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No one online. Moving to our next subject, 4.03. Golf rate analysis. We're not really going to discuss this in any great length today, but Cliff, do you have any, did you put these slides together or put you on the spot for this?
Pat gathered the data, and we assembled these slides. So I'm happy to let him talk on it, but I'm happy to speak on it as well. The point of presenting this is to, I think I prefaced this last meeting, is to, obviously we think about these things when we're putting our golf rates together for our budget, and we're impacted because we are a retail golf course. We are impacted by the rates that are around us. So we wanted to present this to the committee to give some context when we present our budget next golf committee meeting as to what our thoughts were and incorporate this into our thought process for our rate recommendations for the budget.
So my understanding is next meeting, you're actually going to come forward with a proposed budget, which will...
Yeah, so every March we present the budget for golf and sports pavilion in their March committee meetings. And then before we get to that, we like to give some context on comparable rates, and then we'll present the operating expense budgets, wages, and other operating expenses, and then talk about what rates we are recommending to help cover the increases in costs if there are.
Anyone on the committee have additional questions or comments at this time?
We'll also present rounds, historically what rounds are doing, where we're at, what our thought process is there on rounds as well. It is a little bit of a shot in the dark in terms of we're halfway through the year. So, we have to kind of guess at what we're going to do the next year. Fortunately, we do have many years of golf rounds that we can point to and averages. So we'll present all that when we present the budget.
But you probably don't forecast the frost delays, do you?
Well, they're kind of baked in. If you look at prior years, you get a mixed bag of them. We're doing pretty good this year on frost delays, which is good because we're already, as you can see, behind through the first 6 months. But we did have we presented well in January, so we'll see how February shakes out.
Just a question on the information.
Yeah.
I'm assuming these rates do not include golf cart rental, correct?
They do, yes. So all the rates presented are with cart except for the member rates. So all the rates on those slides are with cart.
Which one? Oh, there it is, okay.
Yeah, we can
So
go through this real quick.
The first sheet. You guys following,
Okay.
tracking this?
Okay, so we've broken this down into the member resident, the member guest, and the public rates. These are our the methodology for picking the courses that we picked. Location and like type of golf communities. So here's the first slide, and we tried to present this in a manner that made sense, easy to compare. So up at the top, you can see it's peak season, member, which would be a resident, and prime peak season and prime tee time. So it would be the morning to early afternoon tee times. Sun City West is at 46. That's what we charge our residents to play. And that's without a cart. And then we've got on the flip side over there to the right, that's the off season. So you can see we go from $46 to $25. Now what you're finding and what I'm seeing more and more of is this dynamic pricing. You see that the golf communities tend to try to price on a yearly basis because they're trying to obviously put a budget together. A lot of the golf courses don't work in that environment. It's what the market will bear. And so they want to have that time to be able to adjust if need be. They all have a base rate that they're going to try to get, but they start moving the rates when their tee sheet doesn't fill up. So that's the environment that we live in with that. Member guests, we find that some have a different member guest rate versus public, some don't. Again, you're seeing the peak season versus off season. So a member guest for us is $90, including a cart. And what we're seeing is that those prices really vary, as you can see, from $73, $87 up to $147. But again, the light communities, the Copper Canyons, which is Festival, the Pebble Creeks, the Sun Cities, the Grands, they put out a yearly rate sheet, and we can follow that pretty closely. These other ones are kind of biding their time a little bit, and we'll see some prices as we get closer to off-season. And then the publics, you're seeing that not only is it a time frame of booking a tee time, it's also the price itself, meaning there's a couple factors here, but Sun City West, again, $90. And you're seeing some pretty high dollars in some of these places. Got a couple public places. Coyote Lake's at 81. Hillcrest is 70, but they come off of that quite a bit during the week. So I thought this was a real interesting exercise to go through, and we do it every year, but it's always good to see what everybody else is doing. And then the last slide we put in annual card rates. This is where unlimited resident typically, what are they paying on an annual basis? You'll see Copper Canyon at 2,030, but they pay, it's like a Kachina card. It's like a Coyote card. They pay at the counter every time they play. So depending on how much they play, it just adds to it. Not all of them are just golf only. Some of them include range balls. Some include kart. But across the board, you can see it's a wide spectrum of annual passes as well. So, a lot of good information though. Okay.
Pat, on our annual card situations,
Yep.
is there a way that you can track that to see if the cards were actually used?
For us?
Yeah, for us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We can give you an average number of rounds that an unlimited would play. Absolutely.
Just a question on, for like folks that have an annual card, are they generally year-round people, can you say, or are they?
Yeah.
So they do continue to play in the summer?
Right. So speaking of Sun City West, typically it's an unlimited annual. Typically live here 12 months out of the year, and they play all close to 12 months anyway. And it's not uncommon. I mean, a typical unlimited card for us is 280 to 350 rounds. We had a gentleman 4 or 5 years ago play 435 rounds. He was playing 18 holes Monday through Friday, and he was playing 36 on weekends during the summer. So it was incredible.
Pat, excuse me, how many golf courses do these different locations have?
Each one's different. We can go through them if you'd like.
Sure.
Arizona Traditions has 18, Briarwood 18, Copper Canyon's 27 holes, Portobello 18, Coyote Lakes 18, Pebble Creek is, I believe, 45. Sun City has 8 courses, but some of them are 9 holes. I believe 1 or 2 are 9 holes. Grand has 4. Verrado is 2. Westbrook Village is 2. Wigwam is 3. Estancia is 1. 500 Club has 2. One championship, and then it's got a kind of a beginner's course, so they have 2. So different sizes, yes.
Okay, and for these courses, how much of their play is outside play?
So it varies. One of the things that, let's take Grand, because that was a question that we asked. Grand has 4 golf courses. 2% of their play is outside. And that's because they don't have enough availability for their residents to begin with. So it's very limited. They don't really chase that.
Good for us.
Correct. That is correct.
So do we know what these other courses have as far as outside play goes?
We don't know exactly what their outside play is. No, we've asked the question, and we're trying to get some of that information out. Some are holding it close to the vest, and some share, but no, it's not like us as much as other facilities. Now, if you've got a public golf course, Coyote Lakes, that's it. It's probably 70%. But ours is at 9, 8, 9, 10%. So.
Well, I'm just wondering if these other courses, I mean, Grand's a good example, they don't really solicit outside play.
No.
I'm just interested in what these other courses solicit. I know Verrado solicits a lot of outside play.
Sure. And at $179, right, for public play. It's hit or miss, and they're very good about trying to do some dynamic pricing as well. So they have a good base. Verrado's got a very good customer base because they've got that community, 55 and older community as well. So a lot of residents. But each one has a different model.
Well, I just think it's interesting how these different places have different models in their pricing. And I would like to come to some understanding about what our model is for pricing and how much outside play do we want to solicit? And how we compare to the other courses, where you've got the information. I was used to seeing it in the big spreadsheet you used to do.
Right,
Yeah. So,
right. Yeah, the golf environment in Phoenix is very interesting. It's very cyclical. It's also very seasonal. Some of the pricing, there's a couple things that we're really blessed to have. 7 golf courses, no long-term debt. And a lot of these courses have to do their price structuring based upon debt and some things of that nature. Cost of water, the whole deal, expenses. So we're just very, very blessed to be able to charge what we do to get what we get out of this, which is awesome.
do we know, do any of these courses have declarants that still hold the courses? Is there any, what I'm trying to say is, do any of these courses have corporate developers that are behind it that are subsidizing their golf?
So if we go through here, Copper Canyon is a Troon managed property. Coyote Lakes is owned by the same people that own Briarwood. So there's a small, I'm sure it's an LLC that owns 5 or 6 golf courses. Hillcrest is a small corporation like that. Pebblebrook is like us. It's a Robeson community, but a different owner type deal. Sun City, of course. Grand, of course. As far as subsidizing, I would have to think there is some in some of these because they haven't been fully developed.
Mm-hmm.
Verado being an example of that. Right. To what degree, I have no idea. None.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give some information to Rudy, if I can. The average round rate for an unlimited card holder, we've done the math on that, it's about $22 a round. So that's what we average for, and it's approximately 200 rounds, maybe a little less, maybe about 100, 180 or so, for our unlimited card holders on average. So we take all of our card holders, take all the rounds, divide it, take all the revenue, that's what it is. A Kachina and a Coyote is about the same, $31 per round.
How much?
$30.31 per round. That's Coyote and Kachina. And if you, I'll step up to the other mic.
No, what you're saying is that's across the whole year.
Yeah, that's when you take the
so-
total,
Yeah.
the total revenue and the total rounds. And with Kachina and Coyote, you got to factor in the greens fee too. So with that factored in, it's $30 to $31 for each of those. If you look at a couple of things that I found interesting and kind of going through these, if you want me to pontificate on it, I will, but is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so when we looked at member rates, one thing that surprised me is we've got pretty deeply discounted rates for our golfers, even running 7 golf courses. If you compare us to every one of these different communities, and we talked about how many courses they have earlier, you can see at $46, our members are getting a very, very good value for the courses that we run. The only one that's cheaper is Sun City at $41. So I found that pretty interesting, that, you know, these rates in here. Now, these communities do have discounted cards as well, but their regular non-member rate is sometimes 3 times what ours is. So I found that interesting. Another kind of interesting thing that I found is that also translates in off-peak or off-season rounds, where our rounds are pretty cheap. Now, I will say for the other courses, they have dynamic pricing, and that could go down that could go under our rates. But at $25, it's pretty cheap to golf in the summer here for our members. Now, switching to member guests, one thing I kind of found interesting is the Grand does have non-member golf. 2% of it's public, but the other, they have 10% total non-member. 2% of that applies to public, 8% of that applies to member guests. And if you look at their member guest rate as opposed to their public rate, their member guest rate is actually less than our member guest rate at $87. Ours is $90 with a cart. And they charge a cart no matter what. So that 87 includes their cart. So we're higher than the Grand when it comes to member guests, if we want to compare it. Because a lot of people like to compare us to the Grand because they're right across the street. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Some other things here are just, again, when we look off-season at $53, we're the highest. Now, there's some dynamic pricing that happens that probably goes above $53 for those really desired tee times in the off-season, but we're charging more than everybody for the most part during the summer. And public, this is where, when you talk about methodology and what are the different dynamics of all these courses, it's not just what the course provides, but it's also what the immediate courses around the course provide. So we're competing with Coyote Lakes, we're competing with, in terms of, immediately around us, there's some other, let's call, less desirable courses that are even cheaper around us. But we've got Hillcrest, Coyote Lakes, Sun City, and Arizona Traditions. Those are probably the closest non-member courses that we compete with. And if we look at the pricing at those courses, to me, I think we're situated pretty well now. The only difference between us and those courses I just told you, or one is our courses are nicer, so we can charge more. But the other thing is we have 7 of them. We got 7 tee sheets we have to fill. And to fill those tee sheets, and when our members are taking the most desirable rounds through the portal, through early bookings, things like that, we're selling a round cheaper, but we're not selling the same round as the public is. So Coyote Lakes will have dynamic pricing, $81 that's their baseline pricing, but if you golf there Friday through Sunday, you're gonna pay $110. That's what you're gonna pay there. But again, they've got 1 tee sheet to fill. We've got 7, and we're not full now. So we have to be very sensitive to changing prices in here to compete with the public. We really do. We feel like we have to do that because if a member guest comes here and pays $90 to play from the Grand, all right, yes, they can drive their cart over here, and they're not going to pay $90. They're going to pay $74 because they're not going to pay for a cart. So, but we are looking at that, a way to kind of maybe put a fee in there for those people, a trail fee. So that's a little teaser for the budget. But anyway, a lot of different things we got to consider in all these different pricing techniques.
I've kind of lost what your point is.
Well, my point is I can't, if I graph that out for you, you want to see it on a graph. If I graph that out for you, it would be crazy.
Yeah, but there's some intangibles you can't put on a graph, like
Absolutely.
the condition of the courses,
There's
the
that as well.
availability of open tee times.
Yes, we're saying the same thing. What I'm saying is we can't stand up here and say the Grand charges $130, we should charge at least $110. It's just not that simple. That's all I'm saying. That's my point.
Okay.
Of that slide.
Yeah, just one point about Sun City, their rates, in fact, most of these are on calendar basis, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and we're on July to June basis.
that's correct.
So we're gonna plan next year's budget competing with their current year's pricing.
Yes,
You gotta take that into consideration.
absolutely.
And what's going on at Sun City right now is there is a major push to try to get rates up. not only
Yes.
not only their dues, but golf rates too. So I wouldn't be all concerned that we're $5 more than Sun City.
Yes. Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, but they still have the same problem we do, and that's they've got 7 or 8 tee sheets to fill. And so, again, they have to be conscious about what they charge for their guest prices and their public prices, because they have more tee sheets to fill than just one.
Pat, how many, or what's the maximum amount of golfers for all 7 courses for one day?
Approximately 1,500.
1,500, okay. And are we close to that, or,
Certain days we are.
okay, okay.
Right, just a comment on that. If you go and look at the member view tee sheets and look out, they're booked full, you know, especially, I'm gonna say, January, February, March will be, you're not finding any, you know, it might be an anomaly, but for the most part, they're packed right in there. All 7 courses.
Anyone in the audience, any questions? Nice, please.
Yeah, Chris Waller, 140558. Do you ever look at this, maybe you do, do you look at it backwards as far as what are we trying to accomplish? Golf is partially subsidized by the rec centers at X amount of dollars, $1 million a year, or whatever it is, right? Certain amount per household. Are we trying to maintain, is that something you look at to try to maintain that as costs go up and down and rounds go up and down, or is there a goal to how much we want the rec centers to subsidize golf?
So the golf operations, now we're not talking about capital improvements, because we do have some capital improvement over the next 10 years that are pretty significant with the irrigation projects. But if we're just looking at operating, golf operates at about $100,000 per course if you spread that out, about a $600,000 to $800,000 deficit. We were down at $500,000 one year. It was a big year in golf. So we do look at that. We don't target a specific number, but what we do is try to look at the rates and operate within that range.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that having somewhat of a target to coexist with the rates would be a good thing, because I know that as a resident, what we, all this talk we're talking about, we don't want every spot of our tee time filled up. There's a nice luxury sometimes in the summer going, I feel like shooting 9 holes, right?
Yeah, sure.
And going out there. So if we can keep that balance to the rounds, along with, what does it cost the association to subsidize golf like we do with all of our other events, right? So that was my thought.
Yeah, okay. Well, we spend about $5,000 a month in chlorine, just to put that in perspective. So it's really not a lot operationally.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a lot. I'm just saying that it's another part of the scale, the balance scale.
Mm-hmm.
You guys missed me? Jim Scott, 404675. So I printed the rate sheets for us and for the Grand. Are we not 72 for member guests?
That's green fee, yes.
Yeah.
Plus cart.
Yeah, 90 with the cart.
Well, 72, and isn't 16 for a cart? 88?
Oh, are you looking at an executive or full
I'm
course?
just going off your guys' sheet.
Yeah, which course are you looking at?
It says 18 hole member guests, November through April, $72, 68 for executive.
Okay,
I'm
72.
using what you're using. 72
okay.
is what I get.
It's 88.
And then your thing shows 16 for a cart.
Yeah, there'd be 88 then, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then on your member guest comparison on with the Grand, so according to their rate sheet, a cart, so their member guest is 87, which you got, but that does not include a cart according to their rate sheet. The cart is only included in the price and the public fees.
Okay. No, I'm not aware of that.
And then the other questions I have not golfed all of these. And in fairness, you guys put on a beautiful product. Our courses are very, very nice. However, I ain't got the deep pocket or the wherewithal to spend that kind of money at Verado. Is Verado a really an equal comparison of a course?
It's a comparison because it's a 55 and older community.
That's the only reason we have it on there.
Sure.
Okay, fairness. And then on our annual cards, I mean, we're putting Briarwood in there. We're putting a couple courses in there. I was like, seriously? Well, I guess my thought is that I understand we're collecting data and we're trying to do an analysis here, and I get that. But there's just some here that are just some far outreaching apples to oranges, if you will.
Just trying to show the value of 7 courses versus 2 or 3 for a card. And I think Tim kind of talked about that earlier when he asked about how many courses there were at these. So you get access to 7 courses for the price, the second lowest price on that sheet.
Oh, don't get
which
me
is
wrong.
a great value. So
We get great value. I
yeah,
agree.
we're trying to show and justify as well, because members do pay they pay dues, which go to help subsidize golf. So
Yes.
they get a discounted rate. We just
Yes.
want to show what kind of a discounted rate they're getting compared to what you would spend at sometimes for just one golf course for an annual card. And we try to put communities in there to show communities. So yes, but yes, you could, there's a lot of different dynamics. We've talked about that at different courses, conditions, clubhouses, locker rooms, all the different things that you would have at maybe a private course. But yeah, that's what we're trying to do there.
I would say your fair comparison is the Grand. I think we're in concurrence with that. If we were to put apples to apples, I mean, we're better than Sun City. We're better than Coyote Lakes. They're kind of in the lower tier. We're more in the middle, and
Depends on what you're comparing, but yes. Well, then no.
well, in that case,
Then no. We're much better.
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Gary Bosack, 102-585. Close your ears, David. Just a couple random thoughts. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pat. We do not use 2/3 of the tee times that we have during the year. We only use about 1/3 of the tee times. Now that's an odd number because you got the summer. But we've challenged Pat in the past to come up with ways to expand rounds by doing some different kinds of things during the summer. So you're really compressing your thinking into the prime season, and that's where we got to be right. And from the standpoint of your time in the sun is coming up right now, because as you all know, there's 2.5 main revenue streams in the community: membership, golf, and bowling is almost a rounding error at $900,000 a year. So it's you and membership that is going to drive the success or failure in this community. So Cliff has said this 150 times, it all starts with the number of rounds. If we get the number of rounds right, it's pretty easy when you look at the average income per round, come up with what the dollar amount should be. And if you try to back into that with your rate structure, you'll know whether you're on track or not. The last few years, we've been able to make up for round deficit because we had rate increases. And that can't go on forever. because there's a point of no return where people aren't going to decide they want to pay that much, especially in this kind of community, because there are too many other alternatives. You saw what happened when we had COVID. I mean, rounds went from 305,000 to 336,000. So people didn't have anything else to do. We're out of that mix now. That's why we're back to 320,000 rounds a year. And the vast majority of that is happening in those 4 prime months. As far as the deficit, you're going to hear some garbage being spoken by some of the candidates running for the governing board this year about how golf is not paying their fair share, and golf ought to make a profit. I mean, listen to the candidate speeches that they make online. It just kind of makes your head spin. There isn't a golf course in the world that makes money when you fully burden it with all the expenses. We're part and parcel of the entire package of Sun City West. And you made the comment at the governing board meeting last week about how expensive pools are and how much revenue they generate. 0. So when you hear those kind of comments, it's really, really important that we refute them, whether it's in-person conversation, whether it's in the independent, whether it's at committee meetings. We can't let people get away thinking golf is a burden in this community. You made $11,700,000 in revenue last year in golf. That's the highest we've ever had. Massive year. And the difference between that and the expenses were about $900,000. I've been here in years when that's been up as almost $2 million. So we've narrowed that gap. I don't remember the year that was 500,000. We ought to put that one up in a frame and put it up on the wall.
333,000 round year.
Oh, that was the year. Okay. That was not very long ago. But my point is, just, I mean, put your thinking in that context when you think about what we're going to do with the budget this year, because what you do is really, really important to the entire community ability to make the kind of money that we need to have the benefit of great courses and great facilities and access to the finest place in all of America. So thanks for the time.
Okay,
I'm still trying to figure out why I needed to close my ears.
Because you and I talked about that before the start of the meeting. I don't want to bore you.
His wife says you need to tell him things quite a few times before it sinks in.
so I'm walking away from this with the feeling that we need to give consideration to what you presented today as far as costs as we currently know them. And then when you come back next month, we will take a better look at what we potentially changes we may need to make to meet the budget needs based upon the estimate of the number of rounds of golf.
So we'll present a budget based on the estimated rounds of golf, based on what what we're anticipating for expenses, and then we'll make a recommendation on a fee increase, and we'll look at members, non-members, we'll look at golf carts, we'll look at golf balls, range balls, we'll look at all that. It doesn't mean we're going to recommend a fee increase on all those things. We'll just look at all the revenue sources, and then we'll make a presentation on what we think the best recommendation would be. But we wanted to present this today because this is also part of our consideration. When we look at rates and we look at different courses, we also incorporate that into our thought process. So because there is this tension, and I get it, between, well, why are you charging members more? Why don't you charge the public more? So we want to be able to speak to that and justify that, at least so you could understand what our thought process was. And this is part of that process.
Okay, thanks, Cliff. With no one else, and there's no one online. Did you have something? No. Okay. Under 5.01, committee comments. Let's see. Al, you haven't said much today. So. No. Anything to comment on?
No, nothing at all.
Vanessa?
Yeah, of course.
Lost her voice. Okay, nothing? Okay. Kathy?
Early in the year when the committee first met, we did a series of tours of the golf courses. And one day Todd wasn't available and your deputy stepped in and he did a great job. And we started talking about the guys who take care of our golf courses and the fact that they work 6 days a week, Most people probably don't know that. They don't make a lot of money. I think $17.70 an hour is what we pay those people. Okay, and so nobody wants to have to pay more for golf than you already do. But the reality is that we've got a good group of dedicated people that are working 6 days a week and are not making a lot of money. We have fixed costs that we have to pay for. Fuel, grass seed, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of data that comes into these things that most of the community never looks at. All they know is the end product, which is what do they pay for a round of golf. So, I would encourage people and I get a lot of people who come up to me as I'm sitting out on the patio and complain about stuff. And it could be condition of the course, it could be what it costs to play, it could be, all sorts of different things. I think these guys do a really good job, and I think they're doing their best to try and manage costs. It's hard to do that sometimes given the variables they have no control over, like frost delays. I do think the gentleman who suggested that we actually have a policy about frost delays made a good point. I won't say we're making this up as we go along now with what we're doing now, but I really do think we need to understand the impact, because I've been here 6 years now and there hasn't been a year that we haven't had frost delays. So the reality is we lose revenue as a consequence of that. We need to be able to quantify that. I mean, is it $20,000 a month? Is it $200,000 a month? Really and truly, what is that on average? And so, Pat, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit because you said we'll look into that. Well, I would like you to do more than look into it. I'd like you to look into it and come back and tell us what you found at next month's meeting. Okay. So, again, every time we go into these budget things, when I was on budget and finance, I always felt that we didn't get enough input from golf ops in the giant scheme of things as we were formulating the rest of the budgets. And Cliff and I had talked about that several times. So, I think I'm going to look at it like I said I was going to at the beginning of my term on the board here, on the committee here, which is there's two components of golf. There's the business of golf and there's the playing of golf, and Pat's responsible, in my mind, for the business of golf. So again, I think the frost delay policy, the other things we're looking at now, are important things to try and frame a better understanding inside of the community about really and truly how does golf work here in the community, because this is a golf community, first and foremost. So I think we need to do the best we can to work with these guys and try and, again, elevate that understanding in the community that really and truly we have a gym here. And they're doing the best that they can to try and manage something with a lot of moving parts that most of us don't really understand. Sorry for the soapbox.
Cliff has heard me say this on numerous occasions. We have a great story to tell, and we're very bad at telling the right story. Piggyback on what David said is that there's always going to be a group of people out there that complain, rates are too high, we want them lower, all this kind of stuff. And there's going to be people like David who get it, who understand it, and can refute it. That accounts for maybe 5% of our population. That 95% in the middle who are just all, to use a colloquialism, fat, dumb, and happy, just want to go on and be retired and do all their stuff. They're the people that get swung one way or the other when they hear these rumors and stuff on social media that, oh, they're doing this, oh, they're doing that. Those are the ones who come up and ask people, what the heck is going on? And when you explain it to them, I mean, they walk away saying, okay, I get it. But my point is we need to tell a story and broadcast the story out to the rest of our members that we do have a good story to tell, and guess what? Here it is. And charts and graphs are great. Cliff, he's heard me say this before, but you need to sell what your story is, okay? In an unemotional state. I mean, numbers and graphs are fine, but most of that goes over everybody's head. You need to put it on an emotional basis where people get it. Okay, I get it. We have these great golf courses, and that adds to my property value. All right, I get it. So, tell a better story.
Anyone in the audience, any closing comments? And we have no one online, so.
Taking your entire sheet. Bingo, bingo, Tim, bingo. That is where Rec Center falls flat on its hiney. Our branding and our messaging of the value, the fun, the experience that we have here is not being communicated. The suncitywest.com website is the most static, plain Jane, sorry for anyone's name Jane, but it does not invite, it does not excite, it does not engage. And we've got to do a better job of communicating the value, the opportunities of things that are going on here. And I think that falls on our GM's lap. I think we're going in the right direction. We got an IT guy, so we're moving forward. Question. In regards to, along with that, and marketing, we got 4,000, we're deficit 4,000 rounds, approximately, Cliff? And so we're just running a basic number of 46 bucks. I mean, that's 184 grand that just slipped through the crack. $184,000. I mean, I used 46, but yeah, I hear you. Okay, 120. I'm using government rounding. What's that? Through December. Oh. Ugh.
We'll make progress through March, April.
I understand, but it's still 120 grand just slipped through that's money we don't have and we'll never be able to get back.
Right.
So anyways, I guess that's the one thing that I'm not sold on, that we do a good job of marketing our golfing. And I don't know if we do or don't, or do we market golf? How do we market golf?
There's an online component as far as partnerships, and then we do it in print media, various ways.
You might read. So I can't help myself now. So you're right, 100%. And Pat can attest to this. One of the things that we're doing, because we've done the new IT director, that then frees up our general services officer. And one of the things I'm tasking her with, and we're just getting started because at 5 months in, I can only do so much, right? But I've already had conversations with Pat and also with our general services officer, Katie, about the need to market better and also the need to tell our story better. So these are things that as the general manager, I'm very much aware of, and is definitely one of those things that's on the radar and is coming. So even during our strategic planning process, which that initial process is to, through a survey to our consultants, was for the board to provide input on things, initiatives and projects, but also our management team, including myself. So there will be things on there that are going to be required, assuming the governing board then approves the final product of staff, and that includes those types of things. And staff will attest to this, how often I preach in our Monday meetings about telling our story. So those are just a shift in culture that is in the works and is coming down that direction. So just wanted to address that so we all are aware that I am keenly aware of some of these challenges. But thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Well, seeing no other people standing up to comment and no comments online, I think there was a lot of productivity in this meeting, and from my perspective, I think we offer golf, especially to our avid golfers, those that have Kachina cards or Coyote cards or unlimited cards. They're getting a really good deal if they play a lot of golf, which is the goal. So I think, we'll keep that in consideration when we look at our rates and things, but I think we are headed in the right direction, even though we're down a few rounds of golf. It's hard to say why we lost 4,000 rounds of golf here in the past couple of months. I personally think a lot of people came back a little later this year because of the heat, or it was quite warm in October or whatever, and people probably didn't play. But with that in mind, seeing no other comments, our next meeting is on a Thursday, March 13th, 1:30 right here, and we'll adjourn this meeting at 2:55. I thank you for coming.